We're going to continue with our meeting, and the next item on the agenda is the school bus demonstration project. Dr. Valesky.
Thanks, Dr. Cohen. As the board may recall, we had a discussion with the board about a solar bus project and our initiative to try to push the district into a green environment. And I would like Mr. Juliana, who has done a little background on this, to introduce our presenters.
Thank you, Dr. Valesky. So a little bit of background that actually brought us to where we are now. Last January, my interest was piqued during an informal conversation with some friends and acquaintances regarding solar energy. During the course of that discussion, I learned some of the details of 2 school bus demonstration projects that are currently underway in California. I also learned that there's a need to further explore the solar energy initiative with a similar project on the East Coast. So I was kind of excited about the prospect, and I brought the initial information back to Dr. Valesky, and we had a conversation about it, and we participated in various communications, phone calls and emails to learn more and do some exploration with the folks here this evening, and ultimately with Public Service, Electric and Gas, and other entities. We know the East Brunswick Public Schools has a long tradition of being first, on being a leader. We pride ourselves on the tenets of excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts. However, those tenets don't end there. So why not help pave the way with solar energy if we can do that? So that's what brings us here now. Before introducing our guest this evening, I want to acknowledge Dr. Ken Lutz, who has been instrumental in bringing various parties together to engage in discussions on this potential initiative in East Brunswick. A little background about Dr. Lutz, which I think underscores the credibility of this project. Dr. Lutz holds a PhD in electrical engineering from Johns Hopkins University. He's a recognized expert with decades of experience in energy, telecommunications, and public policy. A congressional fellow, he's responsible for the bipartisan congressionally approved Storage Act, which was aimed at building out more energy storage to increase the amount of renewable power on the grid, reduce our country's need for power plants, and make the United States energy system more reliable. He's been instrumental in writing federal legislation for renewable energy and energy efficiency. He helps utilities modernize their grids with smart grid technologies, renewable energy sources, renewable energy storage, and other technological improvements. And lastly, and Dr. Valesky would like this part because Dr. Lutz is an instructor. He's a professor at the University of Delaware, and where he developed and teaches a smart grid course.
Go Hens. That's what I got to say.
So is Trudy here? No, she's not here.
That's a shame. We'll have her watch the video later.
Yes, we will. Unfortunately, Dr. Lutz is unable to join us this evening because he's been called back to work with Congress in Washington on energy initiatives. And it's something that I understand he does annually. So he's very involved on the national level. However, we have 2 individuals who are instrumental to the United States Solar Bus Project initiative here with us this evening. Kevin Matthews is Managing Director of National Strategies, a nationally recognized Washington, D.C. based business-to-government consulting firm, providing companies with strategy, insight, and execution to successfully navigate complex procurement, legislative, and regulatory processes of federal, state, and local governments. Scott Baker is Senior Business Solutions Analyst for PJM, a regional transmission organization. It's an RTO, or a grid operator, that coordinates movement of wholesale electricity in 13 states and the District of Columbia. I'll let these gentlemen share more about themselves and to discuss the solar bus initiative. Now, while I can't promise that this will top the student presentations we enjoyed just a short while ago, I do believe that you'll find this to be intriguing and an interesting prospect. So, Mr. Matthews and Mr. Baker.
Thank you very much. I'm Kevin Matthews, and I just want to start out by saying I feel like such an underachiever after sitting through that. Congratulations to you all and everybody else. But it makes me feel good about the future. It really does, to see the students here knowing what's coming. And that's what we're here to talk about, actually, is about the future of school buses. And we've looked at them the same ways for many, many years, decades back to the 1920s. But everything's changing, and school buses are going to begin to change. And this project is about effectuating that change and seeing how it can advantage multiple parties beyond just schools themselves. Let's see, so we'll start going. So this all started when one of our colleagues literally gave this quote: "If Frito-Lay can cost-effectively deliver potato chips in a zero-emission vehicles, then we must certainly be able to find a way to deliver our children to and from school in zero-emission school buses." That launched the project. That got us all to thinking, if Frito-Lay's found a cost-effective way to do this, there has to be a cost-effective way for schools to do this as well. So that led to the formation under the Clinton Global Initiatives America, a commitment by these organizations, NSI, EV Grid, PJM, Ernst & Young, NRG, and several other smaller organizations throughout the United States to determine a path forward on this particular project. Our goal is to build 8 all-electric school buses, place them in a minimum of 2 school districts, and operate them for up to a year to collect data and publish this data about the economic benefits and the cost benefits and the health benefits that come from zero-emission transportation of students. It's a public sector project. This is nonprofit. All the parties involved are involved in this simply to do the demonstration, collect the data, and publish it to the world so other entities can figure out the most cost-effective way to create electric school buses and zero-emission school buses, not only in the United States, but across the country, across the world. You know, the economic theory behind this is that, you know, current school buses, the vast majority run on diesel fuel. Diesel costs anywhere from about $3.94 a gallon. Electricity is about $1.10 equivalent per gallon. So right there, you automatically have cost savings. But that's not enough to make the difference when you're looking at the initial purchase price of an electric school bus, because they can be much higher than, of course, your traditional diesel school buses. So you begin to look at maintenance savings. Electric school buses have significantly fewer moving parts. They have no oil changes. They have no fluid, much fewer fluids involved in them. You also use the brakes much differently, so the brakes are less. So there'll be maintenance savings. So calculating what those maintenance savings will be, how much reduction is there. And then the new twist on it, and this is where we begin to think about school buses differently, and after this presentation, I don't think you'll ever look at your school buses parked, sitting idle again the exact same way, because an electric school bus has a very large battery in it. That battery serves as a storage device. That storage device can actually be accessed by the grid, by Scott's firm, to deliver electricity back to the grid and earn income during that process. So not only do you have the savings of operating this, the school bus actually generates revenue by selling its excess electricity when it's not in use back onto the grid. That's what we're about to set down and prove, what those costs are, what those savings are, and what that revenue will be. Why now? The technology is now coming all together, and it started at the University of Delaware. And Scott was a graduate there as well, so we've got more Blue Hen discussions going on here. But they've been developing technology along with others, including NRG, who's a part of our process. So it's actually reached the point where it's a reality. It's no longer a theory. There are now, Scott, 30 some odd vehicles. The Mini E's you see sitting in the left picture there, actually operating by the state of Delaware. Each of those cars receives a check every single month for the power it provides back. So it's no longer a theory, this is a reality. This you can read through, and these will be provided through this, but this is some of the things we want to do. You know, at least use the school buses for a year in a school district, collect all the data, have 4 of them as a hope in each school district. This will be done. Design STEM curriculum around them as well, so not only do the transportation people and the grid operators learn about the benefits, the students themselves can see the value of electric school buses. You know, I saw a lot of science and engineering students here today receiving awards. Let them learn, let them see the future, because this will apply to many other aspects, not just simply school buses as well. Our idea is to use the larger C or D style buses, putting in about 100 to 125 kilowatt battery sizes within them. And then having a bidirectional charger. And why bidirectional? That's so the electricity can flow both direction, both into the school bus and out of the school bus. That's different from what you see in most of the electric vehicles that you have today. They have one directional charging. This is bidirectional charging. What is this going to cost? In total, this is our entire demonstration program, not just one specific school district, around $7 million, and that's for the construction of 8 school buses, the charging infrastructure that goes with that, the data collection, the report writing, the public relations around it. I mean, that's the whole program, not just simply the school buses. Again, getting into why V2G now, the grid operators, such as PJM have made significant advances in the last few years, that this is no longer just a theory, but actually a reality. Again, this is just a little bit on the pilot underway at the University of Delaware. Again, we'll just leave this as a part of this that you can read through later and see that we're not talking, making this up as it goes along. You can actually, and if we need to, if you guys need to see it, the university, NRG, PGM, very happy to have people come down to Delaware, see the project, drive the cars, see how they connect, how they earn money. You can watch them in real time. Up and down the grid. It's quite interesting to see, and you guys are close enough by to make that short trip down. Why school buses? Again, a lot of statistics there, but as most of you know, they go about 80 miles a day total, so real good for for a zero-emission electric school bus. They generally only park in a couple of places, so that helps significantly with the charging infrastructure and a specialized charging infrastructure. And I think the biggest thing that comes with them is they sit idle about 80% of the hours in a year. So that's a significant amount of downtime, but it's a significant amount of time they could be participating in grid operations, earning revenue, and balancing the grid. Again, just statistics on the total U.S. school bus fleet. You can read through those as you want to in the future. Our group is committed to safety. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is about delivering students safely to school every single day. That's foremost, and within this organization, the vehicle to grid sounds sexy and fun, and it's an exciting proposition. Safety first, and that is our commitment. Everybody who participates in this process, safety first. So we want you to know that. We take this beyond serious. It has to be this way. We work with in every state we're doing this project in, we work with the safety organization that certifies the safety of school buses from day one. We bring them into the project, let them know what's going on, let them be at the table, so they're totally involved as the process goes forward, and help us make sure we're achieving the standards that are needed in this particular state and school district. This also winds up being a win-win-win for all the parties involved. The school districts wind up actually saving money over time. We believe the economics will show. It supports the utility grid, and it also improves air quality throughout the entire community. It reduces children's exposure to diesel fumes, as well as bus drivers and teachers who ride on the buses. There are studies that show that some of the most polluted parts of cities in the United States are around schools at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when you have a significant number of vehicles sitting there idling, waiting to pick up students. So by reducing those big diesel engines, by shutting them off and having zero emissions, again, you begin to get community-wide benefit throughout the entire project. Significant economic return, we believe, will be proven on this as well. By reducing overall transportation costs for school districts, including the potential acquisition of new school buses as well as their operation and maintenance. This is a hard project, and we put this up here. It's follow safety. This is not going to be easy. We all know that. If it was easy, somebody else would be doing it and have done it a few years ago. We have to roll up our sleeves and work together, and it takes everybody, from the school bus drivers' participation all the way up to Scott's organization, one of the most complex organizations you will ever see in your life. And Scott could probably bring you guys down to Valley Forge to walk into their control center someday. Absolutely amazing to see what it takes to get light to that bulb. And these guys do it every second of every hour of the day. But it can be done if everybody's committed to making it happen. Where are we today? And to show that it can be done. You guys are not the first. We're underway in the state of California at this point in time. The California Energy Commission, the South Coast Air Quality Management District, which is the LA area of California, awarded our organization $2.2 million back in September of 2004. That's enough money to build 6 of our EV vehicle-to-grid school buses, plus the infrastructure that goes in with them. There are also some companies contributing in kind and actual real dollars toward the charging infrastructure. Currently, those buses are going to be placed in 2 school districts in California, the Torrance Unified School District and the Napa Valley Unified School District. There'll be a 3rd selected in the Central Valley probably in the next couple of weeks here as we're completing some logistics works around that. The first school bus will be completed in July next month. We're really excited about that. We're going to be flying out in a couple of weeks to go doing a couple of test drives of it around San Diego where it's being built. After it's completed, and this goes to our safety commitment, it will then not go to Torrance. It will actually be shipped to Denver, Colorado, to the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which is a part of the Department of Energy, where it will go under 4 months of testing of all its electrical systems to make sure not only is it safe as a compartmentalized unit, but that as it communicates and accesses the grid, it doesn't cause any upstream problems. And that's actually being funded by the Department of Energy. They have agreed to do that for us at their own cost in that regard. And that's the level of excitement you see about this program, as the Department of Energy all the way down are wanting to participate and do with this. All 6 of the school buses will be in service this fall in the school districts and operating on routes. The partners in California, just to kind of give you a feel for the complexity and the number of people that have to be involved, the CAISO, which is Scott's equivalent organization in California, their Energy Commission, the Air Quality Division, the California Public Utility Commission, Southern California Edison, Pacific Gas and Electric, NREL, and then the Clinton Global Initiative partners of NRG, Ernst & Young, NSI, LA County, EV Grid, and several other organizations. We have our meetings in rooms about this size to go through the process, but everybody is committed to making this happen. It's actually a really enjoyable thing to see. Just to show you it's real, these are our buses right here, 6 1996 International C-Class school buses. The work is being done by a company outside San Diego and Poway called TransPower, with NRG and the University of Delaware providing the vehicle-to-grid assistance on this. This is the buses as they were being sit down and gutted of their diesel systems work. You can see the engines out of them here, and then this is the engineering drawings of the drive system and the green boxes in the back. The fuel tanks go out, batteries go back in their place. All that work is actually done without impacting the frame of the vehicle at all. So there's no compromising of the original safety structure. It's amazing to watch these guys work, especially as they're balancing out literally thousands of pounds of batteries that are going into the device, but making sure the bus stays exactly balanced the way it was beforehand. So what do we need from East Brunswick to move this project forward? Basically, at this point in time, we're just asking for organizations to say, we're interested, we want to continue discussions, we think this is a good idea, and begin to move forward. So who does that take? Well, first and foremost, PJM, because connecting to the grid is the most important part of this and most complex part of this project. Fortunately, they're on board. They're ready to go, and that's absolutely wonderful. PSE&G needs to be involved from very technical matters to make sure that we actually have enough electricity at the school bus depot to be able to charge theirs. There's several other things they can do with us. They've indicated their willingness to work with us and continue discussions to see how this project could work out. And then, of course, we need support from the school district. That the school district would like to participate in this process, scope it out some more, learn some more, and then make a commitment to go forward. After we have that in place, it's about finding the sources of funding to pay for the project. Again, a project right here, right now, we think is somewhere between $2 and $2.5 million. That's the whole project. Buses, charging infrastructure, data collection, operating the buses for a year, data collection, writing the report, and then the ultimate disposition of the buses when the project is over with. So that's a very comprehensive number that encompasses everything that needs to be done. We don't like to surprise anybody. Said, oh yeah, by the way, we need more money to pay for charging. We throw everything in there at this time. That price may be coming down The state of California, I'm actually going to Sacramento Sunday night to meet again with them. They're looking like they're going to put another $90 million into projects around school buses, which will probably allow our organization to order another 30. So that's going to drive the price per bus down. So as we do that, we pass those savings on to new partners who come in, so we may be able to drop the price per bus as we order more of them. That's hopeful, but not yet proven. Then we have to go out and identify what other stakeholders are we missing and partners. You know, there, as we saw in California, a lot of parties need to be there. We want to make sure everybody's at the table, because our purpose of this is to make sure everybody learns. If you want to know something about school buses, zero emissions, electric vehicles, vehicle to grid, that's all what we want to be a part of this. And make sure those parties are there so they can contribute and learn. And then finally, once the commitment's made, the resources are identified. Oh, I skipped over. Where's the money going to come from? It generally comes from federal, state government organizations. This also, just I know you in New Jersey are very familiar with the term resiliency after Sandy. This actually falls into that category because the school buses can also be used not only to send their electricity back to the grid, they can actually be used to send their electricity back to a building. So in theory, the buses could come to this high school, plug into the high school, and power the high school during a power outage time period. One of the things that most emergency responders tell us they want out of that particular activity is two things. One, they want to be able to send the bus to a gas station. Kind of ironic that you send a zero-emission vehicle to a gas station, but the ability of people to be able to get gasoline after a post-disaster is critical. When the grid goes down, you can't operate the pumps. You can drive a school bus, park it into a pre-wired gas station, and run it for several days to pump gas out. The other thing is traffic control lights. Right now, they buy those Honda generators, hook them up to run those. They know those generators are going to disappear in 2 or 3 hours. They have stockpiles of them to go out and do that. You could actually take a school bus, park at an intersection, plug it in, and run those traffic controls for many, many hours. So a lot of interesting ideas to come out of this, and that's why we feel New Jersey is kind of a prime target to seek funds from, because they're doing quite a bit in this whole resiliency area post the Sandy situation. Then finally, once that's done, what's your time commitment? About 2 years. That goes from the day we get the money and agree to go forward. It takes us a few months to build the buses, get them here, get them tested, and then operate them for about a year, and then collect the data and write the report. So that's about the length of time that things run. So our kind of question is, you know, will you join us? It's a fun project. We know you're going to have lots of questions. We're more than happy to answer them. We'll come back again if need to, individual conversations as might be. But it's really an exciting project, and we talked about earlier, it's the future. It's time to look at school buses differently than we looked at them at the past. It's time to get our kids off of diesel school buses. It's time to make our communities cleaner, and it's time to, you know, make the grid more efficient and do things much differently. And one final note I leave with on this is I was at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for several years. One of my jobs was I oversaw the recycling program there. And the people who ran the recycling program told me one thing very, very clearly. We don't focus on adults. We don't teach adults to recycle. You can't change their ways. That's why we focus on the kids. So we also believe by getting kids on electric vehicles, transporting them to schools as they grow older and move into the marketplace, they'll be more comfortable buying electric vehicles. That range anxiety that I know everybody hears about on EVs, that's not going to be something they think about because they know this thing got them to and from everything they needed to do. So a lot of other benefits can come along as well. With that, I'll gladly answer any questions you have, provide whatever follow-up. Scott's here too. Any of the technical questions you want to get into around the grid questions, he can get into as well.
Can you tell us again a little bit about the funding sources?
Sure.
This is especially important, I think, for the public to try to clarify for them that we're not looking to take $2.5 million out of our school budget to fund this project.
Right. We are not looking for the school district to provide any funds toward the project at all. The only thing the school districts and the other that have been participating in this is they're paying for the electricity to charge the school buses, but that's in lieu of buying diesel fuel, so they actually come out saving money during the process type of deal. The funding generally comes, so the federal government kicked in money into our project in California from the Diesel Emission Reduction Act program that was there. The state of California had a couple of different funding sources that promote zero emissions vehicles. We've already done some analysis here in New Jersey, and there are a couple of agencies around the resiliency area, also around grid areas that are looking, that have some significant dollars that are available to do some work, and that's why we feel New Jersey's a particularly prime target to have the discussion. We'll also sit and talk to people in New Jersey. There are foundations and non-governmental organizations that also have been providing funds for projects like this as well. So there are several places to look for money. We don't think one entity is going to write one check for $2.5 million max. We'll probably have to, pull it together from 2, 3, 4 different types of organizations to get there totally.
And to your knowledge, there are no state laws or regulations that would prevent us from becoming involved in?
Not to our knowledge, but we will sit down with the safety people, as soon as we start to make sure there are no issues that'll go there. Generally, it just takes a recertification of that particular bus to get it back out in the field.
Okay, thank you.
And the timeline again, let's say we give you a commitment, or a school district gives you a commitment. So from that point on,
Yeah, from
when
there,
does the actual bus show up?
yeah, if you voted on this today and approved it, my guess is it would take us about another 6 months to get all the stakeholders lined up and all of them on board and get the funding arranged. So that would get us into what, December of this year.
6 months in New Jersey?
Yeah, 6 months. It can happen. It can happen. And so that gets us, contracts written in January of 2015. 2016 with the school bus vendor, whoever we decide to deliver the buses. Probably take them about 6 months to build 4 school buses, get them approved for safety.
What's what we're talking about, 4?
Talking about 4. Now, and that number's flexible. If we need to go more or less, if we have more money, we can do more. If we have less money, we can do fewer school buses. So that gets them here in the June, a year from now time frame. So, get them into service by your fall of, what's that, 16, 17 school year, run them that entire time period, and then collect the data that following summer, analyze it, and write the report, into the fall of, fall of 17. So that's about your 2.5 year commitment. Yes,
You mentioned a savings of diesel fuel over the electricity you'd have to use. You mentioned that a school district actually used to buy their electricity. Wild percentage, 40, 50% savings for that?
Well, Scott, you want to talk some about that? Yeah.
Yeah, the fuel savings between diesel and gasoline right now are probably more like a third. So it's about a third the cost to drive on electricity as opposed to diesel. That used to be a lot better back when diesel prices were a lot higher. And they fluctuate pretty wildly. So you can walk into some savings if prices go up here in the near future. Electricity prices don't tend to fluctuate like that, especially at the retail level where the district buys power. So the electricity price is pretty stable, pretty forecastable. Diesel prices are not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At the end of the 2-year process, it's the collection, that's what you're doing?
I'm sorry, what's that?
The collection process of data is for the next 2 years from the time that we get the
No,
buses?
it's 1 year.
1 year.
Yeah.
What happened, the buses belong to the school district, or
That
they
we-
are yours?
We work that out with each project going forward. So in one instance, in one of the California districts, they will keep the buses and continue to use them. In one of the other districts, one of the buses will come back to TransPower, and actually under our agreement with the Energy Commission, it will then be loaned out to other school districts over the coming years so they can just test it and play with it and see how it goes. But we work that out in advance, who owns the school buses, because sometimes people want to keep them, sometimes they don't. And it would not be like we would take 4 of your buses and you would, they would disappear. You would stay whole regardless of how this worked out. So we might have to go out in the secondary market and buy used school buses if you didn't want to donate 4 of yours and have us retrofit them to all electric. You wanted to stay whole. We could go buy used school buses and bring them in and do it that way.
But your concept is at the end of the year, we would have to figure out how we're going to purchase those buses.
No,
back.
that would be worked out in advance. That would all be, not when it's done, before we went down the road, you would say, we want to keep these. And, you know, we sat down with the, when we were working out the progress with both Napa Valley and Torrance Unified School District, they wanted to keep them. We had not selected a vendor. So when we went out to bid with a vendor, the one thing that, no, not the one thing, but one of the things those school districts wanted was a 5-year warranty on the school buses because they were going to keep them. And so the winning vendor that we selected did provide that 5-year warranty. So it's a 2-year demonstration project where we'll be, you know, constantly maintaining them, and then they'll still have a 3-year warranty after that, and still be in use in that school district.
When I was looking at solar energy for my own home, the state of New Jersey was offering significant rebates or incentives to do that. And when they came out and did their presentation, they would calculate in the return on investment that cost with the rebate and the cost at the time of what people were being remunerated for the return to the grid. But in all these years since, because we didn't do it at the time, probably should have then, but the incentives are gone. New Jersey doesn't offer them any longer. And there's so many people that have been selling energy back to the grid that what they pay for energy on the grid is much less than what it was anticipated when the proposal was first given to us, making the return on investment much longer than the original calculation. I would assume you really have no control over that. Or does that not affect this at all?
I don't think that affects this project at all because the revenue aspect of this for the school district would be for the battery to be selling energy services to this marketplace that my company runs, these wholesale markets. That's a market, it's not an incentive, it's not a policy tool. It's a market that will exist into the future, so it doesn't go away. The value of it may change over time, but it's not like a direct incentive for a technology, like what you're describing in New Jersey.
No, I'm just thinking it might be better for us to use it to offset some of our energy costs in our own building than to waste our time selling it back for a much lower value to a grid that doesn't value it as highly as we would for our energy costs.
Yeah, I think you'll find it's a higher value. Using the battery to sell services into the market is a higher value. It's a pretty good market for batteries to do this right now. And there's quite a few very large batteries that are doing this in PJM's territory today. To give you an example, the cars that are in Delaware are earning $150 per vehicle per month under their demonstration. So it's a pretty decent revenue stream.
And those were what, 16 kilowatt?
They're 16 kilowatt vehicles, and this would be
5 times larger.
about 5 times that. So it's not an insignificant revenue stream. I think you're talking about selling energy back to the grid, and that doesn't have quite as large a value as selling some other services to PJM.
So for full disclosure, I work for PSE&G, and I work in the department that most likely would be directly involved in, if there were to be such a project. So I probably will have to recuse if there were to be any vote. So my question is, I don't know if Mr. Giuliano mentioned solar, or you guys mentioned solar. I didn't hear any solar aspect in your presentation.
Right.
Can you clarify?
Yeah, I think Mr. Giuliano mentioned solar, and the district, the bus depot actually is already thinking about putting solar energy on this facility. I think that's very interesting. We didn't think about that going into it, but it adds an interesting dynamic to the project. The first being, you're literally charging these batteries with zero emission energy. Now, the solar panels aren't going to produce 100% of the energy that would be needed for these batteries, but at least a portion of it would be truly zero emissions energy. And then there's some other interesting aspects that you can conceive of doing with solar and storage together at the same site. So you can do things like level the output of the solar for the electric system, which makes it a lot easier to integrate. And you can also potentially use the solar power in the event that there was an outage. Typically, the solar, when there's an outage, solar you actually just stop putting it on the grid, and you stop being able to use it for safety reasons. But if you have a battery with it, then you could actually use it. So it adds some different dynamics to the project.
So I think there's a lot of details to be worked out as far as, the revenue streams, who's investing, who receives the revenue streams for the energy, the ancillary services. So if you're talking about, whether it's frequency regulation or energy, I heard you explain that the school will pay for the energy to charge the battery for transportation.
Right.
So there needs to be some determination of the energy then that's used for the fuel, to fuel the battery that's discharging to create other revenue streams. So I think there's a level of detail and discussion as far as who owns those other revenue
Sure,
streams.
yes. And that gets worked out, yep.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of details to be discussed. I mean, this is a very exciting proposition. I think we stand to, as a state, to learn a lot from it, as a school district, to learn a lot from it. But, I want everyone to understand this is a very complex project, and a lot of details to be worked out.
Yeah, it is indeed. I mean, there's the slide up there with the X over the easy button was on purpose. This is not an easy thing to do. There's only one other project like this operating in the world. It's in Delaware, that project. It is the first project to actually do this in the world. And it's been a tremendous learning asset, I would say, for the University of Delaware and the state of Delaware. And now we're trying to replicate that in a different application.
Yeah, and I would further state, and, see if you agree with my statement, that the technology hasn't quite proven to be cost-effective. It's not at a commercial stage. So all this is about getting funding to support the project.
Exactly.
So it's not about investing in a currently commercial, cost-effective technology in a proven set of markets.
Correct.
So this is all about learning, to the extent that the school district can save some money, and it would be good to get an idea of how much we would save, and the investment would be in our time and energy to contribute towards the goals of the state to improve our infrastructure. And if we can work out something in that relationship where we can get emergency power, other benefits, that would be to the benefit of the school district as well.
Yeah, it's interesting on that side of the equation. It just so happens that the Torrance school bus lot sits right next to their IT center, where all their servers are. And so that's our plan, is to be able to provide backup should there be a loss of power in California in Torrance to their center, and provide that. The IT guy's eyes just lit up as soon as he saw us walking around. He said, "What are you guys doing?" And we said, "Well, we're going to put in this." And he's like, "I want it." That was sheer luck that it worked out that way. But yeah, interesting things that can be done.
But very well said. I mean, this is not an off-the-shelf product that you buy and it has a rate of return that a rational consumer is just going to invest in today. I mean, this is very much about a one-of-a-kind demonstration project that we hope can bring benefits to not just this school district, but many school districts across the country.
I mean, one of our thoughts is when we write that report and it gets published, and that's one of Ernst & Young's job in this, is to come together and do the economic analysis and write that report and put it out there, is that Bluebird, IC, Thomas, the big three school bus manufacturers, can read that report and say, oh, here's a path forward for zero emissions. But it could also be someone none of us have ever heard of, who looks at this and says, wow, this isn't about school buses any longer. This is about an energy market. And here's how I make my money. School buses are just a part of that equation. And we wind up with a totally different model by the way school buses are bought, sold, leased, or put into school districts. And that's what we're going to figure out and learn. And you've put it very, very well about how it is a demonstration project.
We may need the fourth grader
Yeah.
who did so well in the Scottish test to help us figure that out.
After he finishes deciding my pension, I'll let him work with you.
I did want to add a couple of things as you folks were talking, and I just ran some calculations because of the question that Mr. Philipchak asked. And just to kind of put some perspective on the potential, and this is down the road, but if we look at, first of all, we currently budget about $300,000 a year to fuel our approximately 40 school buses. So if we're going to save, if it costs 1/3 of that to run the school buses based on electricity, it's about $100,000. And based on the return of what those demonstration vehicles are bringing back in Delaware and tripling that based on the information that we were discussing, the net is that it would cost nothing to run the school buses, and there'd actually be a revenue stream coming back to the district. I figured out about $2,000 a vehicle coming back. So not only do you cut the fuel costs that we budget for $300,000, there's a small revenue stream that also comes back. Now, again, this is all, very rough numbers, what comes of it down the road, but it's a very positive, very, very positive thing.
Those are rough numbers, but we've also, there's a lot of papers that have been published about this, and the assumption that the revenue from the grid services can offset the electricity fuel costs is a solid assumption.
I think Dr. Kempton calls them cashback cars
Yeah.
to kind of, as his, that's the professor at
So,
Delaware.
so the part of the equation that has to be solved to make this a solution that can be really, propagated throughout the state is getting the cost of the batteries down, right?
Yes.
So,
Cost of the bus.
the bus you need anyway,
Yeah.
but it's the batteries. And that's really what is not cost effective today, and that's why there's, government funding and incentives, because they realize a school district isn't going to do this stuff on its own because we've got to operate, cost effectively. But if there's, incentives and government funding that will help to offset that and make this cost effective for us, and, you come early because you are going to hit those road, those road bumps, and, we are going to face some challenges.
And that's what we wanted to show is the study is the total cost of ownership. That's what we want to show at the end of the day.
And
So
really
this-
understanding what is the cost
Right.
of the vehicle and the
Vehicle,
battery
so,
have to
yeah,
get to
yeah,
make it
exactly.
cost
So
effective.
and at what point does diesel cross over? What point does electricity,
Right.
battery prices? And we envision, as part of the report, there's a table, that just starts to go through those and says, when this line crosses this line, this is when it makes economic sense. Based on what we've done on paper, that line is within a couple of years already. We think it's actually, when we actually do the project, it's going to show it's much, much closer than that. And one of the questions I believe you asked around, what if the market disappears? What if those incentives aren't there? We think if you look down the road 15, 20 years, the vehicle-to-grid revenue probably won't make a difference if it disappears, because battery prices will
Will
have
go down,
dropped so
right.
much by that point in time. Just your fuel savings alone and your maintenance savings alone, and the price of the bus will have gone down, you won't even want to buy a diesel.
Right, so you're talking to get to that critical point when it
Exactly.
starts to drop.
Exactly, but we got to start, and that's why we feel doing this demonstration with the vehicle-to-grid side shows that possibility, builds that curve, and shows us where we need to go to get into this market.
And just as an example of kind of power of demonstration, the project that is happening in the University of Delaware took a long time to ramp up, and it was online for maybe a year and a half. And finally now they have both Honda and Nissan involved in that project. So you have two global auto manufacturers now sort of looking into this, thinking about, okay, how do I build a car that actually can provide these grid services? To do the same in the heavy-duty truck or bus space would be a major win for this project.
Are there any other questions?
Oh, we could talk all night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're happy to come back again, answer questions jump on a conference call, whatever you would like to go through this process. We're here to answer those questions and work that out, but we
Any comments?
appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Fascinating.
I'll be offering my services as a commuter driver for this.